Hello, welcome to the last section of the course, Services, Dependency Injection and ng module. In this section, we will be injecting a simple service into a component, controlling service instance creation and injection with ng module. Then we will alias service injection with use class and use existing. We will also be injecting a value as a service with use value and opaque tokens, and building a provider-configured service with use factory. Now we move on to the first video of the section, injecting a simple service into a component. In this video, we will provide a service and inject it into a component. The most common use case will be for a component to directly inject a service into itself. Although the rhythms of defining service types and using dependency injection remain mostly the same, it's important to get a good hold of the fundamentals of Angular 2's dependency injection schema, as it differs in several important ways. The code, links, and a live example of this are available at this link. Suppose you have this skeleton application, root.component.ts. Your objective is to implement a service that can be injected into this component and return an article title to fill the template. As you might expect, services in Angular 2 are represented as classes. Similar to components, services are designed as such with an injectable decorator. Create this service in its own file. So this is article.service.ts file, where we have imported injectable and we are using the injectable decorator here. This service has a private title that you need to transfer to the component, but first you must make the service itself available to the component. This can be done by importing the service, then listing it in the provider's property of the application module. So, we will be making changes in the app.module.ts file. Here, we need to import article service from article.service. After declaration, we have given providers as article service. So, the final look of the file is this. Now that the service can be provided, we will inject it into the component. Let's open the root.component.ts file. Here we will be importing article service again. We need to create a constructor with a private article service and save this. This new code will create a new instance of article service when root component is instantiated, and then inject it into the constructor. Anything injected into a component will be available as a component instance member, which you can use to connect a service method to a component method. Now we will be working on article.service.ts file. We need to add some code here, that is the function getTitle. Then we save this file. Again, go to the root.component.ts file where we need to add the fillArticle function. Without the decorator, the service you have just built is rather plain in composition, but with the @injectable decoration, the class is designated to the Angular framework as one that will be injected elsewhere. Designation as an injectable service is only one piece of the puzzle. The component needs to be informed of the existence of the service. You must first import the service class into the component module, but this alone is not sufficient. Recall that the syntax used to inject a service was simply a way to list it as a constructor parameter. Behind the scenes, Angular is smart enough to recognize that these component arguments are to be injected, but it requires the final piece to connect the imported module to its place as an injected resource. The final piece takes the form of the provider's property of the ng module definition. For the purposes of this recipe, it isn't important that you know the details of the property. In short, this array designates the article service constructor parameter as an injectable and identifies that article service should be injected into the constructor. Now we have the index.html, main.ts, and systemconfig.ts files. After compiling the index.html files and connecting to the localhost server 8081, this is the output we get. It's important to acknowledge here how the TypeScript decorators help the dependency injection setup. Decorators do not modify an instance of a class, rather they modify the class definition. The ng module containing the providers list will be initialized prior to any instance of the actual component being instantiated. Thus, Angular will be aware of all the services that you might want to inject into the constructor. Controlling service instance creation and injection with ng module gives a broad overview of how Angular 2 architects provider hierarchies using modules. So that brings us to the end of this video. We learnt injecting a simple service into a component in this video. Awesome!